This is a little demo object. I have two methods defined. Find primes is it's going to find all the prime numbers between a start and end value, and it's actually from the start to I have a range size, so it's going to go from the start to plus 20,000 in this case, and it's going to find out how many prime numbers there are in it. And this is a really slow implementation of prime number calculation, so that it actually takes long enough to make it an interesting demo. The sieve of Aristophanes or whatever algorithm would be like ridiculously fast, and it wouldn't make this fun. But that's the correct way of doing it. So anyway, find primes is this function is defined to run on the server. It's one of the properties down here. Run at the server right here, and then this show primes count is the client function. So they're both defined on the same object. This one object has a function that's defined to run on the client, and one that's running on the server. So the fun part of it is the top part is just the DOM setup will pop up so that it displays. But the fun part of it is it's going to go through 10 iterations, and it's going to create a new thread for each of these iterations. And for each time, it's going to call this find primes, just this dot find primes. It's going to call, that's all I have to do. And the definition that it's on the server will make this automatically do the remote method call to the server. So I just call it like a regular method. It's going to block execution while it's waiting for it to finish, and then once it's finished, it gets the primes back and puts it in the inner HTML. So let's run that. And so some of the things to observe, I was going to, that's not going to work. Never mind, I won't do that. I was going to show you my task monitor to show you that my CPU really did go to 100% CPU utilization. It's a dual core processor, so if you just have one thread going full speed, it can only go up to 50%. But since it's firing off all these requests simultaneously, it's actually running multiple threads on the server using distributed calls, and then they're returning. So it's kind of cool how it's like using the resources both on the server and client just by making these distributed calls. And so that, and one of the other things you'll notice is if I were to do this all in the client, like the browser would effectively lock up because it's not releasing the thread. And so, but in this case, it didn't. And, I can still, the browser's not locked up, the animation's still spinning. And I could also change this value and save it. And once again, we're talking about persistent data, so now it's still synchronized between the client and server. So I could run it again, and we're still talking about the same object. Find primes is still finding the range size by this dot range size, and that's effectively the same thing on the server and client. So I can execute this again with a range size of 50,000, and obviously it runs slower now because it's doing a bigger range. So. Okay. So JSON supports different data sources and has an API for creating different data sources, and it comes with some pre-built data sources for like accessing SQL databases, XML files, and it has its own internal object database that lets you just kind of ad hoc create objects. So I can go into that JSON browser and I could create a new object as a property, just dynamically create properties of it. It doesn't have to be a certain structure. I can just create objects ad hoc. And then it also has security built in. You can define access levels on different objects, and it's user group oriented. And it's designed to be very modular. It's just a J2W filter, so I can just plug it into an existing web application, and you could use Persevere on the client or something else, and you can just communicate with the JSON filter and send information back and forth. And so you can use it with an existing application pretty easily. Okay, so now another so in this, just type it in. So in this example, I'm going to look at this customer's example. So this is like a real simple CRUD application. And some of the things that I wanted to point out, we bring up the code here. So first of all, I have a list of customers, and that's what I'm displaying here. First customer in Chris site, and so it's just a simple. It loads it from. I use a PGS load to load it from the database, and I actually loaded the examples. Let's go back in. So as you'll notice, it's examples.customers is my list of customers, and here I do examples, and then if the customer object doesn't exist, I create a new array, and then I can just iterate through the customers, and for each customer I render it, and then I can easily update it. Let's see, Stewart, and so I click OK, and it's updated to Jeremy Stewart. And then the way that it works on this side is, this is really simple. Basically all it does is to put the values into the inputs. It just iterates through, and I have each of the inputs with the same name as the property name. So it's kind of like if I did first name dot value equals customer dot field field name first name, last name field dot value equals customer dot last name. But I'm just, since the names for each of the inputs are the same as the property names, I can just iterate through really easily. And then when I click OK, it just does exactly the reverse. Each of the values gets set on each of the properties in the customer, and that's all I have to do. That's all I had to do to create a form that read in the values and saved the values. And of course this is persisted. I click refresh and it's still the same stuff. And I can add a new customer, and that's, I just create a new customer object and then push that onto the array of customers. And then I would have a new customer. And I can delete and all that good stuff. And once again, it's saving it all on the fly.
And the push was an automatic save, or?
Yep, it's an automatic save as well. And then, okay, so almost done. There's basically one more demo, a little preview before it. I guess I kind of did this a little bit out of order. I'm going to have to rethink this. But basically, one of the cool things that you can do about this is, in that example I showed you, it was all in a JavaScript file, right? All my code. But one of the cool things, and this is kind of a pretty radically different approach to doing these things, but one of the cool things you can do is you can actually create methods and functions directly in the persisted object graph, like I did with that earlier demo. And like in this demo, these are actually functions and methods in the object graph, so I can actually kind of create application code directly in the persisted object graph using this. And so it's kind of different. I think it's kind of cool. I think it's kind of cool to be able to build these objects that kind of encapsulate this functionality and data when it's conceptually correct. And so anyway, so you can do that, and let me show you. And so,
hey, when you get done with here, could you go see Dan Boren?
Sure.
In regards to subdivision?
It's just be a few minutes.
Okay.
I'll be right over there. Cool. Okay, so once again, I can do distributed computing, make method calls back and forth,